Welcome to the Farmhouse. I'm Stephanie Spiker.
I'm Candace Wiersbowski.
And today we have Jane Kaminski joining us in the Farmhouse. She and her husband operate John Paul's Farm in Indiana County, Pennsylvania. And Jane is also really involved with the National Young Farmers Coalition, specifically working on the issue of land access.
Yeah, Jane has recognized the issue that a lot of young and new farmers are facing, and that is the fact that they want to farm, but they don't necessarily have any land to farm on. And so she has been working diligently on addressing that issue and helping others overcome that hurdle.
All right, let's chat with Jane.
Jane, welcome to the Farmhouse.
Thank you. I'm glad to meet you both.
Great. So we're going to start off with the same question that we always kick things off with, and that is, did you always want to work in agriculture?
There is a yes and a no. The yes is that I have had many experiences growing up with farming. It's something that I was exposed to in high school, and in my young adult life, I worked on a vegetable farm. I surrounded myself with growers. But the no is that it's always seemed like more of a dream to me and not something that I was able to really obtain. Um, I attended the Small Farm Dream course through the Penn State Extension, and I really was just dreaming about it. But it wasn't really until I had a clear land access opportunity that I was able to dive in and start farming.
Well, perfect. That leads us right into, can you tell us a little bit about your farm? The one thing I definitely want to ask about is on your website, it says that your farm uses a mixture of traditional and contemporary growing methods. So can you kind of just tell us about your farm in general and then maybe explain what those methods are?
So that is a really great question. I co-operate my farm here with my husband. It's called John Paul's Farm Limited. We're a diversified vegetable farm. We have a variety of things going on here. Primarily, we focus on vegetable production. We have 3 acres going into vegetables this year, and then we produce some small grains, some hay. We have laying hens, a little maple syrup on the side, and we're even growing some flax with the PA Flax project this year. So in talking about a mix of traditional and contemporary methods, that is tough to answer. It's a great question. In some regards, I'm not the best person to answer that, as I got to be honest with you, I'm not the expert grower on the farm. Everybody lends themselves to different things here, but about what types of methods we use on the farm. We use a lot of old tractors. We found our fleet of FarmHouse to be very affordable for us to maintain and work with and find parts for. And we focus on organic growing practices. We're not certified, but it's all been a learning process of figuring out how best to take care of our soil, how best to affordably utilize systems to produce a lot of food and come out with a profit for us so we can keep doing what we love to do.
I'm excited to hear that you are working with the PA Flax project because we talked to Emma DeLong, so she's let us know about that. So exciting to hear another member.
Absolutely. It's great to work with a team of women and who are supporting such a great effort across Pennsylvania.
Well, you've written a couple opinion pieces for Lancaster Farming about the issue of land access for young or new farmers. And could you speak about why it's an issue and what you think could be done to mitigate that problem?
Absolutely. So over the last 2 years, I've had the pleasure of being a land advocacy fellow with the National Young Farmers Coalition. And I came to them because of my personal story and issues facing land access, and came to learn that there are many, many people across this country who are in the same boat. Land access has been a systemic issue for a long, long time. Back early in the days of this country, women like myself couldn't own land. People of color couldn't own land. And even not too long ago, that has been true. And it's policy that has dictated that. So in an effort to improve access to land, policy is really what we need to help make those shifts. Young farmers are especially facing these issues now, young and beginning farmers, because of the high cost of land, student debt. Just it's really challenging to find land that is affordable to get going as a farmer. And anyone who's a farmer listening to this knows you need access, whether that's through a long-term lease or ownership or otherwise, so you can really get going. So what can we do here? As individuals, we can talk to our representatives about the issues we're facing to tell a clear story of like what we need. It can be hard to know what the solution is as just a farmer. You don't necessarily know how to draft a policy. I'm not a legislative expert or anything, but what I can do is find organizations like the National Young Farmers Coalition who have policy experts who are figuring out how can we guide this stuff forward. And one thing that I'm really favorable towards is the Land Access and Securities Opportunity Act, the LASSO Act. And this is something that if it makes its way into the Farm Bill, for example, it could help provide funding for assistance and services to help farmers and ranchers actually afford and acquire land, which, like I said, is the basis for just getting your farm going.
Is it looking like it's going to make its way into the Farm Bill, or how is it?
Currently, the LASSO Act is a bipartisan act, and it has made some progress, but there isn't a true clear path for it making into the Farm Bill. I do think that it would be a great time, especially as we're seeing some more movement on the Farm Bill, to really advocate for it if this is something that speaks to you. So I highly recommend reaching out to your congressperson if you want to make some moves here.
Yeah, that actually leads perfectly into our next question, which is, I know you've traveled down to DC to lobby for land access and getting these kinds of programs into the Farm Bill. So, through that experience, did you feel like the legislators were receptive to the concerns that you guys brought to them?
Whenever you're having a conversation with your representative, it is their duty to listen to you and hear you out. And I can say that in every case, every representative or representative's office, staffers, or I've met with some Senate offices as well, they have given me the time of day and I have gotten to speak to them. It's hard to gauge in a meeting whether or not, they might take that next step. So it can be challenging, but regardless of that, I wouldn't say that should stop anyone from trying to make a meeting, trying to talk to their representative, because they really need to hear from you, and they need to especially hear your story and what makes something personal to you. So I think we've made some waves. I really think that all of the people that I've met through my land advocacy fellowship, all of us farmers being down there in DC, I think we put some pressure and really showed how important this is to the next generation of farmers.
Yeah. I mean, you got to start somewhere, right?
I was going to say, a foot in the door is still a beginning, so.
Absolutely.
So what are some misconceptions that you would like to clear up about agriculture that you think would make the industry more attractive to potential young farmers?
I don't know how much of a true misconception this is, but perhaps it's something I hear, that farming is such hard work and the rewards aren't are little. Um, but I can tell you from being a farmer that the rewards have been amazing. Perhaps not always on my pocketbook, but it has been an incredible way to connect with my community. It has been a great way to connect with my physical fitness or the earth around me. My mind gets to think about all sorts of things and be creative and problem solve. And it's an incredibly rewarding career in that way. And I think that the more you're in it and the more you try to connect with others around it, the more rewarding it can be. That's not to say that it's not difficult, but it's something worth exploring. Absolutely.
In one of the guest opinion pieces that you wrote for Lancaster Farming, you mentioned that it's kind of a common perception that people think young people don't want to farm. And I know from reading your piece that you don't agree with that statement at all. So what is your perspective? What is actually, what are you actually seeing?
As I've made my way into farming, I hear time and time again, especially from elders, that young people don't want to farm. Young people don't want to work hard. And I completely disagree with that. People do want to work. People just want to be able to make their way in the world. It's a really challenging thing to try and farm if you don't have access to land or access to capital or access to markets to actually get going. And that's a huge barrier. The only reason I'm able to farm is because I have access to land. If I didn't have access to land, I truly don't think I would be where I am today. And so I really think it's important to try to change the perspective and see that we just need to help young people access learning opportunities, access land so that they can do what they want to do. Young people absolutely want to farm, and that has become abundantly clear from my experience with the National Young Farmers Coalition, being connected to so many people across the nation who are young and farming or trying to farm, and just from my day-to-day life and interacting with people.
It's interesting how it seems to echo, I think, a misconception in like the broader world where you do hear like, oh, nobody wants to work these days, but that's not true. I think people want to work. Obviously, they want to be able to, make a living for themselves, but there's also like the dignity that comes with working that I think people want to experience and have as part of their life.
Yes, exactly. That speaks to what I was talking to about earlier. Like the rewards in farming are so wonderful. People want that out of their lives. It's just that getting getting to that point where they can actually do it is the issue.
So you've already talked a little bit about how you're involved with the National Young Farmers Coalition. How can other young farmers get involved with the coalition if they're interested? And, what would be really the advantages of getting involved?
For sure. Getting involved with the National Young Farmers Coalition, the first and easiest step is to become a member. They have a low barrier to access membership. And with that, you can stay up to date on actions that are happening. You can get connected to a local chapter if there's one in your area, or even form one yourself if you're interested in doing that. So membership also entitles you to discounts. Who doesn't love some discount?
Yes, love a discount.
Yeah. But yeah, getting involved with young farmers, the benefit is being connected to a community of people who might be facing the same things that you are in terms of policy issues, but also it's just getting connected with other young farmers who you might learn tips and tricks from about getting your farm going or resolving a certain pest issue that you're having. There's so much knowledge in this organization beyond policy just because of the members that are a part of the organization.
So you've also written about acknowledging your privilege as a white farmer with access to land and how you see it as your responsibility to use that privilege to lobby for more equitable land access policy. I was wondering, why do you think it's important to acknowledge that privilege, first of all? And secondly, how are you using that privilege to raise others up, basically?
As a beginning farmer, it's been something that's been challenging to me, and I've had so many privileges that many other people haven't had. I can't even imagine what it would be like to be in someone else's shoes where they don't have something like land access that I have just to get going, or a supportive family who can help, co-sign a loan or something like that to really get me going. I really feel like it's my duty and that of others who have these privileges to look around them, connect with people whose stories and lives differ from them, and see what we can do to make waves so they have just as much opportunity as people like me have.
No, I mean, it's great. And I mean, I agree. It is always important to, acknowledge your privilege. And, I feel like at, the bare minimum, we should be trying to help each other, right? And whether you, say you're doing it to raise other less privileged people up, or if you say, I'm just doing it because I want to help my neighbors, it's still the right thing to do. Yeah. So what are some challenges that you and your family have faced in terms of land acquisition or retention?
Debt is a major one, and I think a lot of families can say the same. My family in particular, my father-in-law passed away with so much debt. It was a shock to the system, thinking, wow, we're about to start this business on this land and we could just lose it. It could all just disappear. Through our privileges, through our resources, we were able to maintain the property. I don't personally co-own the land, but my husband does with some family members, and we have secure tenure for now. So that's hugely positive. And I think a lot of families could be faced with this sort of issue soon. 40% of farmers in the US are 65 and older. So with our aging population, and I'm sure other folks out there have debt, or perhaps farmers need to sell the farm because that's the only way they can pay for their expenses towards the end of their lives. It's pretty scary. I really hope that the government can step in and help see that this is an opportunity to actually get land into the hands of young and beginning farmers, and to secure that land for our small family farms, whether that's within a family or outside of a family, people who want to farm and want to provide food to their communities.
Yeah, I feel like it's been brought up on this podcast more than once about like the average age of a farmer is 58 and a half or whatever the number is now. And that's kind of scary to think about sometimes, but
it just underlines the need for, to make land more accessible, because we need to start bringing in kind of, newer blood, basically.
Mm-hmm. Yes, definitely. And I understand that that some families don't, the next generation within that family might not be able to or want to take on that role. And that's something that we need to be okay with. Maybe we need to ask why that is. Why are people leaving farming? But also be sure to look out for those who are saying, I want to do that job. I want to be invested in this. Figure out how to get them into that space.
So in one of the opinion pieces you wrote for Lancaster Farming back in, I believe, 2022, you mentioned that, you were a little concerned that people in the farming community would maybe think you're a joke since you didn't really grow up with that ag background. Has that been an issue for you at all? And if it has, how have you dealt with it?
In considering that people might think I'm a joke or not take me seriously because I was some city girl coming to be a farmer, I I don't know if that was just my internalized fear or what, but I really have not dealt with that. I have received so much support from neighbors or anyone I meet, especially elders, because honestly, in this business, I come across people who are generally a couple generations older than me. They've been so supported. They're thrilled that I'm farming and that I want to farm. And what I always try to express is like, I'm not doing this because I'm a quote hard worker. Like I'm not just some unique person. There are people who might have the same attitudes and work ethic as me, but they truly don't have the inroad to get here. So I've been so pleased with the positivity around my efforts to farm. It's been amazing.
That's awesome to hear. I feel like in general, and I feel like we've learned this a lot just working here, the farming community is a very tight-knit community, and it's always great to hear those stories of support and like being there to help each other out.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Imposter syndrome is very real, though.
Yeah.
So I completely understand why you would feel that way.
Yeah.
Okay. So on your website, you say that you are, quote, forever learning on your farm. Why do you think it's important that, farmers pursue that kind of attitude towards continuing education, whether it comes from, firsthand discovery out in the field or, attending ag conferences or meetups?
Learning in agriculture, I think it is so important because the environment around us shifts and changes. The economy shifts and changes. I think we kind of need to be on our toes, ready for what's to happen. At the same time, I think it's really important to be grounded in your values and what you do and why you're doing it. But I want to be able to produce the best products I can because I believe in providing good, nutritious food to people. If there are new ways of doing that can make that happen and be successful, I totally want to be open to it. I mean, there's a history in our country of farming that involves a good amount of environmental destruction, for example. There's been, you know, the, their farming has not been all good all the time, even though it's a really um, positive positive thing for our economy. I mean, everybody needs to eat, and food is so valuable, and other agricultural products are so valuable. Um, but we need to be aware of shifts and changes that can contribute to making it a better agricultural system always.
So that actually brings us to our very final question of the interview, and we always end with the same question for everyone, and that is, what does being a woman in ag mean to you?
I mean, there's a little bit of an elephant in the room in that my farm's name that I decided to name is called John Paul's Farm. That's my husband's male name, right? I made that decision at the beginning of this. I don't know if it was internalized sexism based on external sexism or what, but I I thought I was going to be a behind the scenes person. Um, and I also wasn't very creative at naming, so it was just an easy thing to do. But I have come to see how valuable I am on the farm. Um, I work my butt off every day here. A lot of it is in the field, and some of it is also doing that background administrative work. But being a woman in ag to me, I think has been about learning how capable I am and how much I truly belong in the field of farming. For so long, thousands of years, women were engaged in farming. But as I said earlier, in our country, women weren't even permitted to own land in uh, in the United States for a long time, and our our system of agriculture really did become male-led, male-dominated, and um, that's kind of shown us the way since then. So bringing women into agriculture, we have so much to offer. We belong there. So I really value it.
I love that answer. I think it's nice to hear, that you've accepted that you can be a farmer, that this is your calling or your lifeblood or whatever you want to call it.
Definitely. I mean, like I was telling you earlier, I've been engaged in farming for even before, although my husband had access to this family land, I've had more farm experiences in my life than he had as we led ourselves to this path of starting our own farm. I had done more farm work, but really recognizing my place here was great. I hate admitting that, but that I didn't feel like I belonged. I want to feel more powerful than that, but I'm really glad that I got to that place.
I think it's okay to admit that. I think it's a good thing actually to admit it, because you're not the only one, I would imagine, right? And I imagine there's other women out there who it's, it feels good to hear someone else say that, and so that they know that they're not alone.
Yeah, I agree. I think our listeners will appreciate your honesty as well, and just maybe hopefully take some inspiration from it.
I hope so, definitely.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining us at the farmhouse today. It was so great to have you.
It was so wonderful to spend time with the both of you. I love listening to your podcast and can't wait to hear more episodes.
It was really nice to talk to Jane. I think it's very admirable that she has taken up the mantle of ensuring that other people are able to get access to land to farm, especially because, that wasn't exactly an issue for her. She was fortunate enough that she has access to land, but she's realized that not everyone has had that privilege, and I think it makes it all the more admirable that she has become so passionate about this issue.
Yeah, I agree. And I feel like, honestly, it was just, I really enjoyed her answer to the last question. And I know, it was a vulnerable thing for her, I think, to talk about. But I think that is something that I think a lot of women deal with is feeling like maybe that imposter syndrome type of thing, right? And so, the fact that she's come to realize that she is a farmer and she's doing these really cool things. And then on top of that, she's lobbying to help other people be able to farm. I think that's very impressive.
Yeah, she's doing two very important things with her life. She is farming and she is trying to affect change. And I don't know what else you can really ask for. I mean, those are two very important things.
That wraps us up for this episode with Jane today at the farmhouse. If you guys are enjoying our show, which we really hope you are, feel free to give us a review or a rating and maybe even subscribe to the show.
You can also contact us if you have any thoughts or questions at farmhouse@lancasterfarming.com.
And if you're interested in following along with us on social media at Lancaster Farming here, we're on Instagram and TikTok as @Lancaster Farming, and we are on Facebook as Lancaster Farming, so give us a follow. And then I guess that's it for us, right?
I think so. It's Friday as we're recording this, and I think we are both anxious to jump into the weekend.
Yes. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. I'm Stephanie.
I'm Candace.
This has been The Farmhouse, and we will talk to you guys next week.
Bye.
This episode of The Farmhouse is copyright 2024 by Lancaster Farming Newspaper, part of the Steinman Communications family.
It was written by Stephanie Spiker and Candace Wierzbowski. It was produced by Eric Herlock and Matt Lee. The music you have heard throughout the episode is courtesy of Tin Bird Shadow.